When it comes to studying and exploring the Bible, there are a lot of different tools that we can use to aid in that process, one of which is a concordance. I don't know if you know what a concordance is. It can either be a huge book on my library shelf, or now you can find it online. But basically, you flip through it in alphabetical order, or you type in the search bar a word, and you can find all the places in the Bible in which that word appears. And so as we enter into what is now fourth winter, fifth winter, I don't know, I thought I will look up the word snow. The word snow in the Bible shows up 22 times, and the concordance will show you exactly everywhere that it shows up. Only 22 times in such a big, vast book, but probably makes sense because most of what happens in the Bible is happening in an area of desert and desert wilderness. Snow was rare and special. It had two amazing properties. Snow is white and snow is cold. Half of the references in the Bible where it talks about something being snow, it is in reference to a phrase, something as white as snow. So white, so clean, so pure, that it tries to represent that kind of clean and purity that God offers in a variety of different ways. In fact, sometimes it's a reference to a leper's skin that has been healed, is now white as snow, pure and clean. The other half of the references actually reference snow. To expand my search a little bit further, I looked up the word winter, and winter shows up in the Bible only 16 times. In Job chapter 38, Job is continuing with the struggles in which Job has lost everything. It culminates in God's response from the whirlwind where God says, "Who are you to understand all the things that I do?" But in chapter 38, verse 29, the voice of God from the whirlwind says, "From whose womb did ice come forth? Who gives birth to the morning frost that blankets the earth?" I think that's some wonderful feminine imagery for the divine, for the sacred. From whose womb does ice come? Who gives birth to the springtime? A blanket of winter snow is God giving birth to spring. In the prophet Isaiah, in the 25th chapter, it describes God as a refuge amidst the storms. You have been a refuge for the poor, a refuge for the needy in distress, a hiding place from the storm. It mentions the far extremes of storms and weather. In a heat wave, God is the shade. And in a winter blizzard, God quiets the storm. When the breath of tyrants is like a winter blizzard, you subdue their roar. But God provides more than shelter. The Creator also offers communion. The Lord of heavenly forces will prepare for all peoples a rich feast. Do you know what chores come with snow? Shoveling, pain, and grumbling. I mean, all that snow that blanketed the Northeast this last week, I was glad it wasn't here. We grumble, we say, when's it going to stop snowing? When will the plow show up that I can get out? I am sick of this. Snow also often means staying home to work from home, kids staying home away from school, all of which brings both blessing and curse. Maybe we are done with snow for this year. In Missouri, you never know. But amidst the storms of life, what are the ways that God has been a shelter and a refuge, or even offered communion to you in the midst of those times? Last night, Catherine and I had the opportunity to go as volunteers and help out for Halo's big annual fundraiser. It's down at the Midland Theater. They raised over $1.3 million last night for the youth in our Kansas City area, which is blighted with youth homelessness. As you know, we've been working with Halo, who just built a new facility just west of here on down 350 Highway. They're caring for youth who are homeless, both giving them a place to stay and a bed to sleep in, but also dealing with a lot of the youth around the Kansas City area. They're doing so many amazing things. And it was great to be a part of that, but they are providing shelter. And once a month, Southwood is providing a meal for those youth who are living there in that space. In the United Church of Christ, peace is part of our tradition. Not just a simple peace, but peace with justice. Peace that does not simply seek to settle the storms, but seeks to settle the iniquities of the world. Peace that does not seek to escape life, but engage life and the struggles of others. Hear this quote that really goes unattributed to anyone in particular. Peace. It does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. It means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart. Peace with justice means siding with a God who is refuge and shelter, a God who tears down fences and builds longer tables, and participating in a wider vision of what can be. Over the course of my ministry, one tradition I've had is I hardly ever would cancel church. If I could make it to church, we would have it. Even in the midst of the snow, if I could crawl my way to church, I would be there, and maybe there would only be 8 people there, or 10 people there, or 15 people there. And so a lot of times I would scratch the sermon, and I would pull out this book off my shelf called The Way of the Wolf by Martin Bell. The Way of the Wolf is filled with many short stories and parables about spirituality that are very enlightening. And there I would read the story of Barrington Bunny. I've done that twice here at Southwood over the course of 24 years. I'm not going to read the story to you this morning, but I can simply tell it to you. What I remember is growing up at church camp, we had a vast group of ages, 6th through 12th grade, and what we knew as we grew up each year was that all the 12th graders, all the seniors, ended up in a class together, and the director of the camp would sit down at one point and read them this story about spirituality and our gifts amidst the storm. The story of Barrington Bunny is about Christmas Eve in the forest. And there is Barrington Bunny, who is furry and warm and enjoyed hopping about, but he was the only bunny in the forest. As far as he knew he had no family. On Christmas Eve, as snow begins to fall, he seeks to visit others, and so he hops along in the snow, and he comes to a tree, and he can hear squirrels with a party going on up in the tree. And he hollers up, "Hello!" and asks if he can come and join their party. And the squirrels were like, "Well, of course, can you climb trees?" And he's like, "Well, no, but I'm furry, and I'm warm, and I can hop." They're like, "Well, I'm sorry you can't come up to our party." And so he hopped on along his way, and as he got down by the river, he could hear in the beaver dam a party going on, and he hollered out, "Hello, can I come to your party?" And they said, "Well, can you swim?" And he's like, "No, but I'm furry and warm, and I can hop." And they're like, "Well, but then you can't come inside to join our party." A little dejected, he began to hop away, and he could hear a party going on of field mice, and he hopped around as best he could, but the snow was coming down so hard he couldn't find out where they were. And finally, he just slumped down and said, "What good am I? I don't have any family. I'm no good to anyone. I can't swim. I can't climb trees. What am I going to do?" And then all of a sudden, he noticed the presence of a great wolf with fierce eyes. And the wolf wondered, "Barrington, what's the problem?" The Barrington Bunny said, "Well, bunnies are no good to anyone. I can't do anything. I don't have any family." And the wolf said, "You too are good. You are furry, you're warm, you can hop, and all the animals of the forest are your family." The snow started to fall harder, but Barrington began to feel a sense of worth inside of himself, and so he hopped around and began to gather gifts. Gifts that he said came with no strings attached. At the bottom of the tree, he placed a bunch of straw for the squirrels and put a little note that said, "From a member of your family." He went over by the beavers, and he had collected a bunch of sticks, and he laid them by the bank, and he put a note, "A Christmas gift from a member of your family." It was snowing harder and harder, and he began to hear these little cries, these little yelps. And he hopped over, and he found that there was this little mouse who had wandered away from the rest of the family. It was shivering, and it was cold, and Barrington Bunny says, "I'll help you. I'll do whatever I can. I'm I'm furry and I'm warm. And he laid down and cuddled up with that mouse. The next morning, the squirrels discovered this straw that was there for them, and they're wondering, who's the member of our family that left this? The beavers discovered these new sticks that they could add to their dam, and they wondered, who's the member of our family who provided this even in the midst of the storm? And in the morning, the mouse family found their lost mouse there in the snow, cuddling nice and warm, and they rejoiced to have this family member back and took it home. And nobody really noticed the bunny carcass that was left laying in the snow, except the great silver wolf, who came and sat and stood watch all Christmas Day. What it is to find our worth, to find our ability to recognize a much larger family and the gifts that we have to give, and the great spirit wolf who watches and encourages all the day long. During Lent, we follow one who understood his gifts and mission and saw all people as part of God's family, one who sought justice and provided refuge and offers to us this feast. In Isaiah 55, God says, just as the snow falls and blankets the earth and nourishes it to conceive food for the eater and seed for the farmer, so will my word, my promise, my intention blanket the world until my dream is accomplished. Amidst the storms of life, the prophet Isaiah proclaims a God who prepares an open feast for all who thirst or hunger, even those with no money. The invitation rings out, come to the feast. I'd like to invite the choir to come forward.